Dear Eliana. Okay, number two. Nobody in my whole life has shown me or explained to me the concept of true ecclesia gatherings, true gatherings of powerful friends who are operating in total honesty with one another. Nobody has shown me true ecclesia gatherings. So let's do this and see how it works. Now, I don't expect you, Eliana, to do anything with me, but that's my attitude with me and some of my friends. We're actually brainstorming on the South Jersey Family Freedom Party. The Family Freedom Party Handbook is a handbook on actually restoring what was going on in the first 300 years of the gatherings. Okay, nobody showed me true ecclesia gatherings, so let's do this and see how it works. Okay, now, in our lives, we need to learn how to be single survival and marriage survival people. Both of those things are difficult. They are not easy. You're designed to have a snuggly marriage bed. But as well as that, sometimes surviving walking single, like that weird visitor Yeshua of Nazareth, is actually the most powerful thing for your next life, for the next realm, and for the care of peoples. Love spirit and love peoples. Okay, so one of the things that we need to do as friends, just as friends, circles of friends, is we need to have a love report. We are one form and one flesh, and we need to self-monitor ourselves and check in with one another on the areas where we're going crazy, we're being obsessed, where we've got bad habits that are taking over, and we need to care for each other. We cannot do things just on our own. Yes, you can try pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but if you understand the apostles' teaching, which is the information that Yeshua taught his followers, our battle is against actual invisible spirits. And some of those invisible spirits do not go away after what they call salvation. There are spirits, there are bad spirits that stay stuck to you, and you have to giggle and laugh and say, I'm still crazy in this one way. I'm terrified of spiders, so if you hear me screaming, I might have seen a spider. You know, everybody has their own areas where their buttons are pushed. You know, I mean, like, one person who's a precious friend had a really cheerful, wonderful singing daddy who left when she was a tiny child, and she has a broken-hearted abandonment touch on her heart, and it's really hard for her to feel abandoned by people, and it's just like a place where there's a trouble spirit, you know, like a fear of rejection spirit. So we are called, whether we're running a single life or running a marriage life, we're called to be a love report to one another. We're called to realize that we're one form, even though the woman body has these menstrual cycles, and the woman body has this amazing breast and nipple that a child can latch onto and actually receive sustenance from. And the man has a big nipple that the babies flow forth from, and he has a completely different body structure that's somewhat different. We're one form, one flesh, but we need to be real and fun and happy about our strengths and weaknesses and our needs. And we need to self-monitor and check in with one another, because we actually have a secret private life, and part of our bodies are private, but we need to self-monitor. I mean, I always like to say the mommies and the doctors need to sit there and look at little boy butts and little girl butts all day long, and it's not a problem or a weird distraction for them. We need to monitor ourselves and check in with one another, because we are one form and one flesh, and we need to have a love report that is constant and open-hearted, and I never got that. I was stuck in hidden things that were clearly obsessions and problems for a long, long time, and nobody was inviting me into an open-hearted true ecclesia. Now, the next part is a reference panel. These are some of the amazing references. After I got my physiological self-control, I ended up taking a 24-year tour of what I like to call the church mess in America, an affectionate, caring tour, sitting with people and learning what different groups were doing. And it was amazing. Every group that I went to had certain things that they did so well that the other people didn't do. Like some people, have miracle signs and wonders and they talk in tongues, but their families are all smashed up and they're all materialistic. Then you go somewhere else where the plain folks are, and they have this peaceable family, and they're not materialistic, and they don't even know any Disney movies. And they have this family unity and peace where people just sing together and they work together, but they don't talk about miracle signs and wonders and talking in tongues and supernatural powers. So I learned from all these different groups across 24 years. Now here's my references. All right. In the Pirkei Avot, which is called the Wisdom of the Fathers, in a portion of the Talmud and the Midrash, I learned that it was the practice of the Jewish peoples to give a newlywed couple 2 years of getting to know one another, literally with sexual humor. The scripture says a man should not go off to war when they're just married, or get into heavy business when they're just married, because he literally should be filling his wife with good cheer. They would take 1 year and spend time in the newlywed tent in the woman's family atmosphere, so they kind of pick up the behavior and the attitudes and the atmosphere of the woman's atmosphere, and the guy can figure out what kind of cookies she got fed and how she was raised. And then the next year they spend the time in the newlywed tent in the atmosphere of the guy's family. And so, they keep going back to their newlywed tent and they work with the family, and they do, it's all family business. I mean, the whole purpose of life is to have family business. So they're working with the family business. And from time to time, people say, "What are you doing here still working? Get back in that tent and have fun and learn how to enjoy each other." So the man and the woman are literally learning how to physically enjoy each other for 2 years, with a whole lot of rest and a reduced amount of responsibilities. Then it says in the Pirkei Avot that the village elders will stand around a young man and say, "Okay, buddy, you are now 18 years old. If you don't pick one soon, we have a body just like yours. If you don't pick one soon, we're going to pick a woman for you." And so then, around, somewhere between 14 years old and 18 years old, there's a marriage that happens. And then when they're 20 years old, the village elders stand around the young man and say, "Okay, buddy, have you decided what your trade is going to be?" And he says, "Well, yeah, we already have a place to stay on the backside of Stash and Mary's farm, because they raise chickens and beans, and my wife loves counting beans and I love chasing chickens, and we're just so happy there, and that's what our life is going to be." So at 18 years old, the trade is decided upon, the trade of the couple. And there's so much family and community support, and everybody's operating under the rules and guidelines of Moses. And I'm like, wow, that's really incredible. Then you read Leviticus 15 and Leviticus 12. In Leviticus 15, you discover that the boy units, the male human beings, have to announce to the family every time that they have a flow of seed. And they are untouchable until the next sundown. It's just like a little heads up. Hey, God's doing something with me. I just had my body flow. Don't touch right now. But the whole thing is an emotional training for the whole family, because we're one body with two parts. I mean, there's nothing brand new about a guy body and how it gets stimulated and what happens with it, and the fact that he is a fountain of babies, and we all flowed forth from a baby fountain. Nobody ever taught me or talked to me like this in a cheerful, papa mama kind of way. And then, so in Leviticus 15, you see that the women, they have 7 days of peace from the family. You know, the word unclean or untouchable seems like a bad, negative, nasty word, but guess what? Untouchable does not mean evil. It just means heads up, something's happening. If a person has a sickness or an illness, they're like, hey, I'm sick right now. Something's going on with me. You know, something's happening with my body. Now, the amazing part of Leviticus 15, and when you read 12 as well, which is talking about how when a boy baby is born, the mother and the boy should be bonded together and not disturbed and not broken apart for 40 days. But when the woman has a girl child, the woman and the girl should be together for 80 days without any break, without a whole bunch of confusion. And this is literally keeping bad spirits and discord and problems and diseases away from the mommy and the daughter. But it shows that the woman needs more time of comfort and care because the woman has a heavier burden to carry in life. Everything is upside down, but there's this one touch of special care for a woman in Leviticus 12. So the family gives extra space to the woman for 14 days out of the month, 7 days and 7 days, and that prevents the women from having a bitter tongue, an angry heart. Nobody cares about me, and the men and the mommies and daddies are saying, listen, the man body is the baby fountain, and the woman body is the baby catcher. And oh my gosh, when the woman body catches a baby, she has to go through all kinds of difficult stuff for a long period of time. And then her body is the baby feeder. And even when her nipples are sore, she still gives the baby to the nipple to the baby's mouth. And the woman's body is such a servant. The woman is womb and mercy, racham and rachem. In the Hebrew teaching, Jesus scolds Nicodemus. He's like, you're Israel's teacher, and you don't understand womb and mercy. The woman body has the highest attributes of God, which are the beginning place, and the forgiving and nurturing place. God is the beginning place and the nurturing, forgiving place. And that is what the mommy body is. It's amazing. When the woman comes into the room, everything gets better. And she doesn't even have to say a word. She doesn't have to correct things. She doesn't have to say anything. Just her physiological form and her heart and her presence makes everybody in the room feel better. Okay, so that's what some of the stuff I learned from Leviticus 15 and Leviticus 12. I have a whole teaching called Finding the Love in Leviticus. Yeshua says, until I return through the clouds and transform everything and take all the death and darkness away, until I return, not one bit of the written law will become useless. It's all very interesting and useful continually in the human family. It does not save you, but it gives you neat instructions about how not to go crazy. It's literally a love letter from a wonderful parent to a bunch of crazy children. The law came out from a loving parent who knows that his kids went crazy. It's so cool. Now, another thing that I learned from a book that I couldn't find the title of it. It was a book from the 70s. It's one of the greatest books on human sexual behavior. It's like the Jewish traditions of sex, marriage, abortion, arousal, like orgasm, something like that. And they talk about this one term. This one term is called Hashhat Zerah. And it's this really cool term that means unnecessary flow of seed. See, in Leviticus 15, well, if you look at it really carefully, if a man has a flow of seed, it is not a sin. He does not have to make a sin offering. But then later, when Jesus shows up, he says, if you are thinking about a person that's not yours, then you are actually committing a secret sin in your heart. It's not anything but anything that people can see on the outside. And even stimulating yourself is not absolutely evil, a sin, but there is an unnecessary flow of seed that we want to avoid. And this is a thing that's part of family conversation. And that's actually for the men and the women. The women need to be praying. May my men, may my boys and my men not have unnecessary flow of seed, because that will keep them more healthy and more peaceful, more self-controlled. And if they learn how to be self-controlled, it will be also more pleasurable for their woman. So I'm learning about all this stuff that's so interesting. Then you go to 1 Corinthians 11, and it talks about spirit beings. If the woman uses the gesture of a veil over her head while she's praying, the men do not go so crazy, and it will have a positive effect on the angels and demons battle around the family. And the men must remove coverings from their heads, because the rabbis and the priests used to cover their heads going in the temple, but Jesus has destroyed the temple, and he said that now the communion gathering in a home is the Holy of Holies, and the men have to remove their head coverings. Otherwise, they are disgracing Christ, because when Christ was crucified, the veil in the temple was torn. And that means that the rabbis have to remove their prayer shawls and just put them on their shoulders. So when we have gatherings at my house, there's a groovy rack of all kinds of neat fabric and shawls. And when we get into like a deep spirit gathering or have a communion time, everybody gets a group to pick out a groovy blanket. And when it gets into deep prophesying and praying, the women can tuck the prayer shawls over their heads and speak and pray and prophesy, because women are allowed to pray and prophesy, but not just give ordinary, I think, I feel commentaries, but just words that they feel are directly from the Holy Spirit. Then there's another thing. In Song of Songs, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 8, it says, precious ones, do not awaken arousal, physical desire, or physical desire for one another. Do not awaken physical passion and love until it is time. Now, if something is written 3 times in the Bible, my parents, I was surrounded by supposed Christians. They never said anything to me about do not awaken, and I was invited to awaken arousal when I was about 6 years old from some friends. And of course, I kept it secret because there was no conversation at all in my family or in Christianity about the feel good of the body, which is almost like a sixth sense. You have a pleasure awareness. Okay? So that thing in the Bible was not taught to me. And in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 1 and 2, it says, since there's so much arousal, desire, physical desire, since the pleasure of the body feels so good, every person should have their own person to enjoy when they want to feel good. I'm like, look what it says in the Bible. And it says you can't even say no to your partner, because your body is owned by them and their body is owned by you. So regardless of how many times they want it, you should give, give, give. I'm like, that's really cool. I knew God was like that. And then, shokodopo kotobo koto di katara. Yeah, in 1 Corinthians 11, it says now there, we say now there's no temple, but when you are coming together for a communion, you have to examine yourselves and you have to admit to one another any dumb things that are going on or special things that God's asking you to do that you're chickening out on. Like, I need to go talk to my brother about this certain thing. Or I need to talk to my crazy aunt so-and-so, and she kind of scares me. So when you share with your communion group, I need to talk to crazy aunt so-and-so, and they're like, oh, we love that lady. We'll go with you. We know she's a little crazy, but maybe a miracle will happen and we'll all have beautiful changes in our lives. So you admit what's going on inside of you. You examine yourselves to share with one another. See, it doesn't say examine yourselves in order to share with one another, but in other places it says to share with one another. And it is God's propensity to hide things, and it's the propensity of wise people to bring them out. And I am a man of serious world travels and wisdom, and then serious studies in great things. So then, yeah, in 2 John 8 to 11, it says an amazing thing. Some Christians do not have God. Some Christians are doing an evil work. And some Christians should not be influencing other people because they are leaving out many of the important details that Jesus taught. And I didn't want to do any kind of teaching until I was done a 24-year tour of the church mess in America. So there's a great warning that says many are rushing ahead and assuming authority, and they really are not taking care of teaching about all the details. Since they didn't teach me about do not awaken your physical arousal, and we had no conversations whatsoever about singleness or marriage and physical arousal, I was stuck in arousal obsession for about 40 years of my life. And I'm telling you, it was a serious, affliction by a spirit, because I had been conceived by two parents who were outrageously, cheerfully promiscuous. In John 6:29, there's the word pistuo. Pistuo is possibly the crown word of the entire New Testament Bible. Pistuo in Greek means to become twinsies with. It means to cleave to. A cloven hoof is a hoof that has two exactly the same parts that are stuck together. And pistuo means to connect with, to attach to. But it is improperly and problematically translated into English believe. Okay? Believe implies just an agreement with a theory. But pistuo implies becoming connected with or attached to a person and their way and their lifestyle. So, in John 6:29, the disciples asked possibly the most important question in the Bible. How do we get in on the supernatural work of the creator of the universe? How do we get in on the work of the creator of the universe like you are? You're obviously healing people and you've got all these supernatural powers. How do we get in on the work of the Father, Yahweh, Adonai, Elohim? How do we get in on the work of Elohim? And Yeshua says these Greek words. This is the work of Yahweh, Elohim, God. This is the work of Father, that you, pistuo, connect with, attach to, become twinsies with, eis hos ikenos, on him whom, apostolo, he has sent. You should connect with the person that is sent to you from heaven, that is sent to you in a clearly beautiful, heavenly, fascinating, wonderful God way. Oh my gosh, God sent you here. The way that you connect with God is you connect with a person who has been sent to you. Now, obviously, Jesus of Nazareth is the supreme sent one. But if you study the New Testament, you've got Paul, who is a superscribe rabbi, who has this young guy, Timothy, who was raised with the Bible, with his mom and his grandmom. And Paul says, look, don't let these people give you a hard time because you don't have any big fancy credentials. Your credentials are the history of your upbringing. Both of my parents went to seminary. Both of my parents served the poor. I'm talking about in the scariest streets of North Philadelphia and Camden. My parents were servants of the human family. People thought they were nuts because they spent time in these neighborhoods and they weren't out on the golf course or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When my parents went on vacation, they brought other families with us just to go and have experiences together. They were group and sharing minded people. And It's very difficult in my life because I don't have any physical family. But when I met Eliana, I felt like this is like a great family person. And I don't know what, I have no idea what is going on with her life, but the things that she said and the insight that she had was so deep that I felt like I need to begin to tell my testimony to this woman. Single survival or marriage survival. When you make a marriage vow and you stand with a group of people and declare, I will be one flesh with this person until one of us dies, that's a very different thing than sharing arousal with someone. And what I learned, that since I wasn't trained in my one form flesh, I wasn't given a love report by my parents, I wasn't taught how to survive in singleness with my arousal and physical desire, and I wasn't taught how to survive in family. Basically, the true ecclesia gathering must actually begin, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not willing to say that I am in communion with anybody unless we can sit down and check in on how we are doing, even with our physiology, men and women together with children, checking in to find out if we're having any obsessions or problems. If that is not a part of our family care and our family life, then guess what? Just like I was literally hiding my physical life and stuck in so much shame and lies. I mean, the things that I was hiding in my life caused me to be a liar, and it caused me to be a cheat, and caused me to be a nice guy on the surface, but willing to hate people and be screwed up on the inside. And I do not want Eliana and her boyfriend to go through any of the difficulties that I went through. And that's why I'm heading into this story. That's part 2, which is kind of long, but that is the part of the research stuff. All of those places you can find access to, you can study those things, and it's really neat stuff. It's really cool stuff. Most importantly, one of the most important teachings of the earliest church is we have this supernatural visitor. He is called the designer of the marriage bed, but he comes to the earth and he does not actually enjoy the incredible pleasure of the man body and woman body enjoying one another. And he says, if you can understand how singleness like me is a totally beneficial thing for the human family and for your next life, bringing you many eternal benefits and rewards. If you can understand the value of being single like me, if you can understand the value of it, then you should accept it for your lifestyle. Now, he doesn't say it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you, if you don't have a communion group circle of a bunch of really happy people saying, okay, you single people, is your body going crazy? Put your hand up and we'll just pray for you. There's all kinds of bad spirits all around us, and people and movies and music and all this other kind of stuff. You know, are you having any fantasy problems? Are you having any inner obsession problems? Just put your hand up and we'll pray for you and we'll drive the spirits off, because our biggest problem is invisible spirit beings. And invisible spirit beings can attack the people that are, that are basically dedicated to one another. And we don't want the boyfriend-girlfriend relationship to be messed up or confused. We want them to be at peace, and we want them to be unified. And we want them to be like not hurting or cheating or doing something wrong with one another. The whole reality of life for me is church was a total fake, because nobody showed me a true ecclesia gathering where we're all just honest and we're giving a love report and we're understanding that we're one form and one flesh, and we're talking about the beautiful ways to care for one another. Do you know that when I was a young man and I heard about the menstruation of women, I felt so brokenhearted. I was like, this is not fair that the women have to go through this stuff. I wish I could take it. I wish I could help them somehow. It's not fair. We should be trading this back and forth. The men should be carrying this trouble, this difficulty. And it was like, and there was never any conversation about it. And I would think about what it would feel like every day to maintain the body of the woman that is flowing, and the responsibility of that, and the distraction from other things that the woman has to take care of, this flow from her body. And I'm like, I mean, that just blew my mind. And that is a weighty thing that in Leviticus 15, if you picture being a family with a whole bunch of kids and a really happy family with a lot of business going on, and you're maintaining every single male human being. If you got to flow a seed, you got to put your hand up and say, okay, I'm untouchable till the next sundown. And all the women are like, oh my gosh, help my brother, God. Maybe we should find a woman for her, and da-da-da-da-da, that kind of stuff. All the details in that are fascinating, because when the man and woman are together and there is a flow of seed, then she has to announce to the family and her friends, I'm untouchable right now. And it literally is a marker that there was the wonderful flow. That's the love report. There was a wonderful flow in the warm form in the flesh. When I read Leviticus 15, it changed my whole life. It was like, okay, this is actually the good news. The good news is that we're supposed to be real about our body physiology, and also even about the arousal and the feel good, and ways of taking control or being watchful over our physiology. That's a great thing. But now with the devices, you got a thing in your pocket that literally flows through with enticements and thoughts and images that end up making you excited. So it's even harder now than when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I knew where the fascinating pictures of naked people were, and it was almost like a holy place. Like I kept getting drawn to that secret place where the pictures of the naked people were. I discovered a pile of magazines called Sunshine and Health that were people in nudist colonies walking around just without any clothes on. It was really cool to see all these different shapes and sizes of people without clothes on. And it made me really angry at the Playboy and Penthouse magazines, that people were all focused on one woman body form, and there's all these different body forms, and what matters is how somebody loves you and cares for you. It doesn't really matter the shape. What matters is the love, and the love report, and staying in love with one another. And I just got this education that was really strange and difficult in a hidden place, just by looking at nudist magazines and having parents that didn't talk anything about the one form, the one flesh, and survival of singleness and marriage. So I lived for 40 years, literally with a secret life. I lived 40 years with not sharing the truth that's inside my heart with anybody. Sometimes, not my closest friends or my girlfriend or my wife. And, now is the time when everything is coming together in the South Jersey true ecclesia gatherings, where we're just real, totally real with each other, and supporting one another's goals and dreams, and excellent lives and inspirations and music and travel and all that type of good stuff. Yippee.